Have you ever watched the show Cops? Right? Now, I'm not a normal follower of the show, but every once in a while there's a Saturday afternoon, and next thing you know, you're sucked into some sort of Cops marathon. So if you've never seen the show, here's the basic premise. 1, you got some drunk people. 2, they're doing some really stupid things. And 3, it always ends the same. About 10 police officers jump on this poor individual. There's some big scramble, lots of yelling and screaming, and finally, boom, on go the handcuffs. So I have to admit, and maybe I shouldn't here in a group of folks here in Orange County, but I've been incarcerated twice in my life. So it was a long time ago when I had my Cops moment. Now, it was a completely a misunderstanding amongst us all, but that was the reality of what happened. So it all worked out pretty well. When I showed up at the judge, somehow they had screwed up the paperwork, and there I was. He said, well, what are you here for? Got very mad at the prosecutor, called me a moron, told me never to show up in his courtroom again, and dismissed the case. He let me go on my way. So that was the very first time. But what it taught me was, why is that big scramble at the very end, right before they arrest folks? Because the minute those handcuffs go on, your ability to operate with freedom goes away. You can't just go walking across the street and say, hey, how you doing, Joe? Or you can't even speak to somebody. I mean, the reality is, yes, sir, no, sir. Your freedom has gone away the minute those cuffs go on. Now, the second time that I got incarcerated wasn't quite the same deal. I got 40 years to life without parole. 40 years to life without parole. Now, there's a big difference between the first time I got arrested and the second time I was arrested. The first time I arrested, I was very clear what my charge was. I went out, I got myself a lawyer, we got our dukes up, we went in to fight the big fight. The second time I got arrested, I was in jail and I didn't even know it. So the reason I'm here this morning is to tell you, if that could happen to me, that could happen to you. So what we're going to do today is essentially 3 things. I'm going to let you be the judge and jury. Are you in jail? Number 2, when you discover you're in jail, you probably go, Jeff, what do we do? So the second piece is, I'm going to give you an escape plan, or at least the first step of an escape plan. And then the third piece, you know, a little secret, I'm a fugitive. I actually broke out of jail, so I'm living life on the lam. So I'm going to give you a few hints of what it looks like to live life on the lam. So welcome to my courtroom. If you've been on jury duty, you know how this works. You're going to be the judge and the jury and the witness. So answer this question. When in your life did you have the most influence? When in your life did you have the most influence? So in other words, when you said jump, boom, people jumped. Got that? Got the age? When was it? Got it nailed, all right. So in a group like this, especially with business leaders, typically what I hear, the majority of people say, well, right here, right now, which makes complete sense, right? Because you know, the reality is, over time, we get more authority, more responsibility, more people working for us, so when we say jump, jump. The second answer I hear, which is a smaller percentage, is like, well, actually, it was like 5 years, 10 years ago, because I had a different position. I was the president of the bank at that point in time. Now I'm an independent contractor. But the big answer is, did you say 2 years old? That's right, 2 years old. We've all heard of it, the terrible twos. We've seen it. There's the kid in the shopping cart, standing where he's supposed to be sitting, screaming at the top of his lungs, face bright red, veins popping out, and just grasping for that piece of candy, right? We've all seen that. We're all going, what's going on? Where's the parents? What are they going to do? They need to get this kid under control. So as parents, we have a responsibility. So we sit the little guy down and we say, hey, look, for your own good, I need to explain this to you. You can't have everything you want in life. It just doesn't work that way. I don't want you to be disappointed. So, candy, you know that house in Newport with the view? Maybe not you. Time to buy the new car? Mercedes? One more Honda. The new job? Oops, Joe got the job. You can't have everything you want. I don't want you to be disappointed in life, so I need to teach you right now to lower your expectations. Now, kids aren't always great with logic, so then they say, well, wait a minute, if that's not going to work, the second thing they bring out is what? I'm your parent. I'm the authority figure here. When I say no, no means no. And the message is, the minute any authority figure, your parents, your teacher, your boss, anyone else says, no, it's time to back off. So at 2 years old, boom, the first set of handcuffs. Think small, don't think too big, Don't push back on authority. How you feeling? Feeling a little guilty? Was your social economic bringing up, your sex, your color, whatever? What kind of handcuffs do you have on? So handcuffs is the very first thing. That's the first constraint. We've all seen it on the TV shows. In my book, I speak to some other constraints that are even greater. The shackles of success. They're so heavy that you can barely move. There's also the prison cell of constraints. And the last one is the big wall that's around us, which is the prison wall of fear. So tell me, are you feeling like maybe there's some constraints on you that you don't even realize that you have? Think about that for a second. 40 years to life. So on January 22nd here in Orange County, we were famous. Nationally, we were famous. I don't know if you remember what happened, but 3 of our esteemed members of society, inmates, broke out of Orange County Jail. It was the first escape in 25 years. Now, we should be very excited, since we're inmates as well, that it's actually possible to escape, right? So we should be rooting for these guys. And it wasn't easy. It was a big deal. I mean, first off, these guys were able to cut through some little metal grate while being in a dormitory with 100 other inmates. No one seemed to notice. They climbed through that into some musty, cold, dark catacombs of the prison, following the plumbing and the ventilation, all the way up to the roof, where they then took the bed sheets that they'd been hoarding, fashioned themselves a nice rope, which they then threw over the side to rappel down the 5-story building. The best part? Now, you would think they might have done that in the back of the jailhouse. No. They landed right in front of the main entrance. You got to love these guys. They should be our heroes for sure. So, what happens when you walk into jail if you've never had that great opportunity? The first thing they do is they strip you of everything you have, right? The rings, the watches, the glasses, the belts, the shoelaces. Why? Really 3 reasons. 1, they don't want you to kill yourself because we get a little distraught when we find ourselves in jail. 2, they don't want you to kill someone else, turn the toothbrush into a shiv of some sort. And 3, we don't want to give you any tools that might help you escape. So the question is, here you are, a prisoner with nothing but just you. Where do you start? So the question is, what is in your hand? My question to you is, do you know your strengths and talents? I mean, do you really know what they are? Your God-given gifts that you're just, this is what's unique about you. And even if you know them, have you developed them into a really powerful tool? Are you the Michael Jordan of your particular space? And then, like our inmates at the Orange County Jail, have you fashioned them into some sort of tools and processes that actually can help you bust out of this prison and go move to the next part of life? So, in Jailbreak leadership, that's step 1, starting with your strengths. We have 3 more processes that I guarantee you will help you break out of the most maximum security prison. So I have a little story for you. It's a crime, it's a constraint, and there's 2 escapes. When I was just a little guy, down the street lived the Rakoffs. They were my parents' best friends. They had kids the same age. In fact, Sherry was 1 day younger than me, so the family spent lots of time together. Loved each other. But there was 2 dramatic differences in the dads. Now, my dad was a corporate guy, worked for General Motors, Cadillac division his whole life. Mr. Rakoff was what we would call an entrepreneur. Made $1 million, lost $1 million, made $1 million, lost $1 million. My dad worked hard, out the house early in the morning, home pretty, early evening, never worked weekends. Mr. Rakoff, 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. My dad retired at 55. Mr. Rakoff going strong at 70. So it should be no surprise when all us kids grew up that all the Rakoff kids were entrepreneurs. One took over dad's business, and one had a flower shop out on the line. Me, armed with my engineering degree, I went out and got a job in what? Big corporate America, Westinghouse. But I immediately had this problem. I mean, I thought, maybe naively, that work should be this really passionate, fun-filled, charge in the hill sort of deal. And the reality is, that's not what I saw. What I saw was like boring, kind of turning the wheel. I saw a statistic the other day. They interviewed a bunch of employees of a company, and they said, on an average day, what percentage of the time are you working to your strengths? The answer? 20%. Now that sounds like prison to me. So we needed to bust out of this. So my process was while I went up the corporate ladder and moved my way along in this whole program, I was always drawn to this idea that there must be something bigger, something better that I should be drawn to get after. And so I was always in that pursuit and always in that pursuit. And it was actually a gentleman like me one day, I was listening to a speaker, and he stood up there and he said, you know, if you really want to live the life, have a career that really counts for you, what you need to be able to do is have your own shop. That's the only way you get to make your own call. So I served a 25-year sentence in corporate America before I finally, scared to death, was willing to put my own shingle up there. 25 years before I finally got there. But the problem was, over these 25 years, many, many other crimes were being committed that I didn't even realize that were still holding me down. So I escaped, but I just went from maximum prison to sort of minimum security, which gave me some room to breathe. It took me another 15 years of still honing these skills, the things I'm talking about in the book, where I finally went for the big break. Just last summer, finally made the big move. We said, all right, what's next? My wife and I packed up our gear, left Orange County, moved to San Diego. Let's go find a new marketplace. Let's start all over. I took my worldly view of what I do and I narrowed it down to this. Now we're getting down to the core of what we're doing. And something as dramatic as my whole life, I thought I was a logic-driven sort of guy. Engineering degree, everything's by logic. And I thought the creative people were sort of my enemy. Turns out, speaker, author, I am a creative. All of a sudden, I'm actually a different person than I thought I was. That was the big escape. So what was happening to me is that once I got on the side of the fence, I realized I actually couldn't stay out. Recidivism in America is like 90%. So if you're not actually different when you break out and just better, a better inmate, odds are you're going to end up back in jail. So just to wrap up, why the book? Why am I talking to you? Another little statistic. The leader of a small business, lower middle market company, they influence 1,000 people. Imagine that. 1,000 people. Like, wow, that's a lot of people. But if you think about employees, their families, vendors, customers, a community, it's not too hard to get to the 1,000. So thus, these 1,000 people are all looking at you as the leader saying, I want to have a passionate, fun-filled, climb the hill sort of career in my life, but they don't know how to do it. So they're looking to you as the business leader to help them make that break. So it's really understanding what are the constraints, what are the crimes that I'm guilty of that I don't even know that I'm guilty of. How do I come up with an escape plan? And even more importantly, how do I execute that plan? And the third piece, once I get out, how am I going to look different and not just better? And that's Jailbreak Leadership. Thank you very much.